Imagine someone offers to buy an old mug sitting on your desk for $10. It is a plain mug, nothing special, and you never even think about it during the day. But the moment someone actually offers you money for it, something strange happens inside your head. $10 suddenly feels insulting. You catch yourself thinking it is worth at least $15, maybe even $20, even though 5 minutes ago, you would not have paid $5 for that exact same mug if you saw it in a store. Nothing about the mug changed. It did not become more useful, more beautiful, or more rare. The only thing that changed is that it became yours. And somehow that single fact quietly rewired how much you believe it is actually worth, without you ever consciously deciding that it should, as if ownership itself flipped a switch somewhere deep inside your mind. Psychologists call this the endowment effect. It describes the tendency to assign a higher value to something simply because you own it, compared to the value you would assign to that exact same item if you did not own it yet. In theory, ownership should not change an object's value at all. A mug is a mug, whether it sits on your desk or on a store shelf. But your brain does not evaluate ownership rationally. The moment something becomes part of what is yours, your brain quietly starts treating the idea of losing it as a real loss, not just a missed opportunity. And because your brain already hates losing things far more than it enjoys gaining them, giving up something you already own feels far more painful than acquiring that same thing would have felt good in the first place. A small imbalance that quietly shapes far more decisions than most people ever realize. Researchers demonstrated this clearly in a simple experiment using ordinary coffee mugs. One group of participants was given a mug and asked how much money they would accept to sell it. Another group was shown the exact same mug and asked how much they would be willing to pay to buy it. Logically, both groups should have named similar prices, since it was the identical object. Instead, the group that already owned the mug demanded roughly twice as much money to give it up as the other group was willing to pay to obtain it in the first place. Simply holding the object in their hands for a few minutes was enough to double how much they believed it was worth, purely because it now felt like theirs, a result so consistent that researchers repeated the same experiment many times with the same striking outcome. This pattern shows up constantly in real life, often with far higher stakes than a coffee mug. Homeowners frequently list their house for a price far above what buyers are actually willing to pay, not because of market data, but because of years of memories and effort attached to that specific property. People hold on to old clothes, broken electronics, and cluttered belongings for years, insisting they are still valuable long after any objective buyer would offer almost nothing for them. Negotiators on one side of a deal consistently overvalue what they are giving up, while undervaluing what the other side is offering, which is exactly why negotiations so often stall over items that, to an outside observer, seem far less important than either side believes, purely because ownership had already quietly inflated its value in their minds, long before the negotiation even began, sometimes years before either side ever sat down at the table. The deeper reason this happens comes down to identity, not just economics. The moment you own something, your brain starts quietly weaving it into your sense of self. Giving it up does not just mean losing an object. It feels like losing a small piece of who you are, even when the object itself is completely replaceable. This is why people often feel a strange sense of grief when selling a car they rarely drove, or donating clothes they never actually wore. The attachment was never really about how useful the object was. It was about the story your brain quietly built around owning it. A story that made the object feel far more irreplaceable than it actually was to anyone standing outside that story, watching the attachment from the outside instead of living inside it. The way to see through this trap is to mentally separate yourself from ownership before making a decision. Before pricing something you want to sell, ask yourself what you would honestly pay for it if you saw it in a stranger's hands for the very first time. Before refusing to get rid of something you no longer use, ask yourself whether you would actually go out and buy it today if you did not already own it. These small mental shifts strip away the false sense of attachment your brain quietly built and reveal the object's real value underneath. Ownership will always try to convince you that what is yours is worth more than it actually is. If this video just made you look differently at something sitting in your own home, subscribe, because your brain has been inflating the value of your belongings this entire time.